Hey guys, Chris here, F Words Podcast, and I am in our home. This is actually the spot where we host our Bible studies that we do every other week. We actually have it coming up this Friday, and then the next one is going to be the 26th of July. And then we do every other week in August, and August 31st is the last fifth Friday of August, which we'll be hosting a dinner here. So you guys are always welcome to attend those. Right now we're wrapping up going through Mark. But what we travel into next should be interesting. And then the dinner that we do every fifth Friday is something that's completely open to believers, non-believers, questioners, atheists, everything. It's just a loving time to get together with a group of people and commune with food and really just kind of spend some time loving on each other, because ultimately love is the main goal. Yesterday I posted a little bit about Jonah. So I'm kind of studying through Jonah on my own right now. It's short, but it's deep. It's awesome. If you go back yesterday to a post I made, I talked about why did Jonah run? What was Jonah running from? Did Jonah technically turn from God? And ultimately, was Jonah a false prophet for what he did? So a lot of the depth of Jonah is as a prophet of that time, if you made a prophecy that was not fulfilled, that was false, you were a false prophet, which was punishable by death. So when God calls Jonah to go deliver this message, he knows in his heart that they're going to turn to God. God's going to forgive them, and he's no longer going to destroy them, which then makes his prophecy to them look false. And he worried about risking his life for all those people, and he's struggling, and he turns, and then finally throws himself over, gets thrown overboard, the fish swallows him, and begins to pray. He goes in begrudgingly, gives them the message, and then the end of the story is pretty interesting. So what I wanted to kind of put the question out there and take away was, sometimes we get lost in some of these Old Testament stories and think they're just stories and don't realize the depth of what we're talking about. Simple things like Jonah, Ruth, Obadiah, Habakkuk, all these weird little minor prophets. And it's a time when we can look at the Bible no longer linearly from start to where we are today, but also horizontally, or instead of horizontally, vertically. We can start to look vertically and realize a lot of these the timelines start to overlap in different places. And you can start to grasp the culture and the depth of the history around it. And so you take somebody like Jonah, and you understand that his profession as a prophet, what it meant to be a prophet, what he had to study, what he had to know, the amount of time he probably spent in prayer for him to be able to hold that position, and for God to finally use him, but put him in a position where he essentially was going to, in the worldly sense, sacrifice his life to save this large group of people, which is super cool, because God's almost forecasting what he's planning to do as the coming Messiah, is to give the life, his flesh, for the salvation of all of us. He's asking Jonah to essentially do the same thing, but we see as humans, we resist that, and we run from it, but Jesus never ran from it. So people are like, well, wow, how is Jesus different from all the other prophets? Well, there you go. When it came to sacrificing life for everyone else, Jesus didn't run the other way. So it's just kind of cool. And it made me think, how many of us sometimes feel the call of God and run the other way? How many of us fear putting the risk out there to save more than one or one other? How many of us kind of hide our faith because we're worried about what others might think or the offense of it? And what I want to kind of challenge you with today is go read Jonah if you want to. It's 4 or 5 chapters, real short. Or just read my post from yesterday, or just take what I'm saying to you now and just kind of sit and engage in some prayer and think, has God called me to do some things that I'm either resisting or running the other way from? Am I fearful in any way of putting my faith out on the line? I've had a gentleman tell me, man, if I talked about my faith like you do in my job, I wouldn't have a job. He mentioned when he was younger, they had an HR rep in their company that had a Bible on his bookshelf that he would like to read at lunch every now and then. And basically the CEO said, you need to remove that or you don't have a job here. So the guy said, I'm not going to remove it. So he lost his job. How many of us are willing to sacrifice our job like that? And some of you might think, oh, geez, why would you do that over a book? Just put your book somewhere else. Well, to him, it was that important. And, he was willing to put on the line and trust God with his life. And who knows what happened from that day forward. It may be a blessing that he got out of there and completely transformed his life for the better. But how many of us are not taking the risk or afraid to kind of put our faith out there? And I tell everybody, we talked about this last Bible study, that the Bible, there's nothing offensive in the Bible. A lot of times people, what they find offensive in the Bible, have just heard about it. They think these things are in the Bible. They think there's this guy that just murders people. They think there's rape and slavery, and they don't understand where it's actually mentioned there, where it's wrong. And you meet non-Christian people that are like, I just want to love people. I don't want to exclude people. I want to treat everyone fairly. I want to just be there for people and serve them. It's like, man, you're talking about the major tenets of Jesus. This is really cool that, this is proof that these things, these immaterial things you're talking about, this desire to serve, this desire to love, this desire to include, is written in your heart. Like it's passionate for you. And that's proof that God has put this all in our hearts. So I encourage you to investigate why that can lead to Jesus and why Jesus is the truth above all else. And that's really cool. But I think it's going to take some of us breaking out of our shell and not being afraid to take the risks and not running the other way when God calls us to use us. Francis Chan says in our last Bible study, if you're one of those Christians that think just opening your heart to Jesus is enough, I'm afraid it's going to be a little more costly than that. And in America, the worst thing we have to lose is maybe reputation, maybe a couple friends at the water cooler, possibly our job at the most. The world is not necessarily going to turn their back on us here in America. Nobody's going to behead you, rape your family, murder you, steal, kick you out of a home. None of that stuff's really going to happen. But the more of us that step up and show the loving, serving, inclusive nature of God's holiness, when we start showing that with the world, it's addictive because it's written in our hearts. We're all desiring it. We just don't know that it's there. So let's be that beacon of light for everybody. If you guys have questions, comments, go ahead, leave them below. We are working on the podcast this summer, so we're excited to get back into it in August. It's going to be coming quickly. We're working on, still raising some money to get some new mics and cameras and stuff. And hopefully these little videos here and there have kind of helped you guys tease along through the summer. But I hope everybody's doing really well. If you're interested in our Bible studies, comment below or message me. We are in Texas, so if you're not in the local Texas area, you won't be able to join us. Same thing with the dinners. But thank you guys for listening, liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. If you feel it in your heart to help us with our ministry, if you go to moltenchiropractic.com/prayer, there's a prayer request form there. If you scroll down, you will see a donation form. So if it's something that's moving you to kind of help currently and raise money for some mics and cameras, that would be great. We'd greatly appreciate it. Until then, I'll just pray for all you guys. I hope you're doing awesome. I hope you're having your safe, loving summer, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.